Hi everyone, welcome to tonight's webinar. It feels like a little bit of a Freaky Friday moment because usually I'm on the other side, but hey, I like it. So tonight joining us is Andrew Moon, our viticulturalist and vineyard manager, and we're going to be talking to you about what's going on this year for our 2016 vineyard harvest, all that other good stuff.
Vineyard harvest.
Yeah, why not? I'm coming up with a new term. That's what I do. So behind the scenes today is our lovely Terry Meyer-Stone.
Oh, let me come in.
Come in and say hello.
Hello, Terry.
Hi, Terry. Alrighty.
Can you explain about we may go off air?
So we're having a bit of technical difficulties tonight, so we may go off air. We've had some Wi-Fi issues here at the winery tonight. So if that happens, just bear with us. We will come back online. And and ask us any questions that you want. And Andrew will be a wealth of information. Perhaps, hopefully. Definitely not me. Don't, let's not have crazy expectations. So.
Yeah. So tonight we're going to do a bit about harvest. Obviously we're not harvesting yet. It's a little bit too early, but the season is coming on quite quickly. So what I'll do is I'll just go through the season as an overall view and what we think is going to happen, and we'll go from there. So we did have an early bud burst this year. So in historical terms, it was probably one of the earliest bud bursts, or was the earliest bud burst in 20 years.
Okay.
If you compare it to, say, a cold season like 2010, 11, we were 8 weeks ahead in bud burst in the vines. So if you think about that, that's 2 months.
That's crazy.
It is crazy.
That's really quite nice. Do you think that has something to do with the fact that we had a fairly mild winter this year as well? Or
we had a mild winter.
Unrelated?
It was a good winter for us because we had a lot of snowfall.
Okay.
It protects the vines from the cold. It's like an insulating blanket that covers over the root system. Okay, so that was really good for us, good for the vines. Also, probably has 150% snowpack here in the Open, so that meant that the water supplies coming down off the hill were quite good.
Okay.
Way above normal. And we had an even bud burst because the ground was quite wet. Okay, so when the grounds are normal, when it gets hot and dry, or dry and wet, you get uneven bud burst. Because it was quite uniform, you get the buds come out uniform. So we have a really nice bud burst, even though it was 8 weeks early. Agriculturally wise, that's dangerous because you're putting yourself in frost risk.
Okay.
Okay, so all us vineyard guys were all on edge for like 8 weeks because we probably had two periods in those 2 months where you're likely to get frost based on full moons. Okay, so if you don't know that, you usually get a frost after full moon, so a couple of days if you get high pressure systems. But anyway, we got a bit worried, but we got through all that. And it's great to get an early start to the season. So we did that, and then flowering, or when the plants start to blossom. That was really early as well. So
how was that 8 weeks early as well, or was it had it kind of
a little bit of a stretch out? What happened in here was in this area was that it was the hottest April and the hottest May on record.
Yeah, it was hot. It was hot.
So that pushed the plants along. Okay, so they kept up the same pace, and then June was like the 5th warmest in the last 20 years. Okay, so everything slowed down a little bit comparative to last year. And then July was a totally different story. It was like the 3rd coldest in history, or it was the coldest July in the last 20 years. So we've had a bit of a mixed bag. We've had more rainfall this season than we have probably in the last 2 or 3 seasons combined. So that's changed it a little bit.
Okay.
Put a lot of pressure on the guys.
I imagine so. I have actually, I'm curious about this is because I've heard other webinars with you speaking and talking about how some of like the cooler climate grapes, when it becomes too hot, they actually shut down. So with it having being so much heat, say like April, May, even June, was it good that we kind of had a cooler July?
Yeah, the April, May temperatures weren't hot enough probably to close the vines down. It was just meant that they had a lot of sunshine and they had a lot of moisture and they grew really well. Okay, you probably get that effect start coming into June and July when you gradually get temperatures in the high 30s and into the 40s to make the vines close down.
Okay.
So with the June cooling down, it actually slowed the growth process down and it's come more back in line with last year. And so that's a good thing. So we're nearly back to what would you say normal for last year. We're still going to be 3 or 4 weeks ahead on an average of a 20-year time period. So it puts a bit of pressure on us guys out in the vineyard because it's just the planning. So you do a lot of planning and things like in the winter months, hiding away, trying to get out of the cold in the office, those kind of things. But we have to meet the prune. But you do all this planning, and that of course means all these cash flows and when you spend money in the vineyards and all those kind of things. And what happens is that basically pushed everything 2 weeks, 8 weeks ahead of what would you say was normal. So it puts a lot of pressure on things like budgets and labour.
Yeah, because like you mentioned, when cherry season was, like when everybody was kind of everything in the vineyard was gearing up for us as well, and then you've got people that are doing soft fruits and things like that.
All the other guys in the growing soft fruit, the ground cropping, the fruit trees, they're all in the same boat as the grapevines, so they're all ahead. We had guys showing up 6 weeks after we flowered and asked if there was any work. Because that's the usual time that it happened.
Yeah.
We kind of finished. Right, doing what we're doing.
Okay.
And I threw people out this year that were so early in the season. But, like I said, it's come back in line now and it's pretty much similar to last year.
So with all the rain that we've had, because it hasn't been wet like we're used to, especially the South Okanagan, what are we concerned about now that's happening?
Yeah. If you're down in great growing areas in the world, we're having a nice track. But in Canadian terms, like last year, I think we had, it was like 17 mil of rain, not even an inch in the whole growing season.
Oh wow,
so that's
okay,
like,
it's a big difference.
That's like April 1st to the 31st of October, and you don't get rain. This year we've probably had 4 or 5 inches of rain, some in larger events, so if you're talking half-inch amounts, if you get over a half-inch, we call that effective. So if you get less than half an inch, we don't call that effective in vineyards because the rain doesn't soak into the ground far enough to get to the root systems.
Okay, that makes
so
sense.
Last year, 17 mil was all non-effective. So we had 2 mils and 4 mils and 3 mils and things like that. This year we've had a couple of events where we might have got an inch or 3/4 of an inch. So change the irrigation strategies here. We're in a desert, so we do use drip irrigation. We have to because of the ones that die. So usually we're supplementing water to the ones. There's a couple of times this year with that because of the rainfall.
Okay.
Okay, so that's one thing that's changed a little bit. And you've got to be a bit more careful with your grape growing with varieties that have got tight bunches or tight clusters.
Okay.
And the berries are really tight together and things like that. What can happen is that they can get bunch rots. Okay, so from moisture, it's mainly humidity and the lack of sunshine. So we've been really on to things like opening the canopies up around those bunch zones, separating bunches in the canopies apart from each other, and just basically keeping the canopy clean so there's no chance to get bunch rots. Nothing is mildew. Okay, so we usually have trouble with powdery mildew and it's everywhere around the world. But this year, because of the extra humidity, actually powdery doesn't want rain.
Oh, wow, that's
It just likes the humidity, and it likes those cloudy days, like we had weeks of clouds, 25 to 30 degrees Celsius. And that's perfect for mildew, so it's been really tough on the guys out in the vineyards. Basically spraying sulphur every couple of weeks to keep mildew out of the grapes. So, yeah, so it's been a difficult season as in that, but you get used to it. Every year you grow grapes is different, so.
I guess that's kind of part of the fun, hey? Like
That's
no
part of
year
the fun.
is the same, and you just never know what
You
you're
never get
getting.
bored.
No,
never get
like
bored.
you don't strike me as someone who's getting bored
No.
ever. Just saying. I don't know, maybe that's just me. So what are some of the particular varietals that we grow here at Tinhorn Creek that have those type clusters? Just
Well, you definitely got,
basically,
you got your things like Pinot Noir and Pinot Gris. So
Okay.
the two Pinot varieties have usually tight clusters. You've got varieties like Chardonnay. Okay, so you can get tight clustered Chardonnay. They're the most susceptible, I'd say, for those kind of diseases here. You've also got Muscat and Rieslings, which are quite susceptible as well. Sauvignon Blanc. So they're all soft-skinned varieties, plus they've got tight clusters. And when you get those combinations and you get berries splitting for some reason, could be wasp biting a hole in the berry, that adds sugar to a tight cluster with free water, and then that can cause sour or vitriolics. So yeah, it's just what you do. Every season's different. So in a really hot year or a hot season where you're more protecting the berries from getting sunburned, so you leave an extra leaf layers and stuff like that on the vine. So you just got to go with the flow. Grow with the punches, and that's what it is. So the vineyards are great. So as long as you haven't got vineyards have got clean, so as long as you can get diseases and things like that, you're going to have a really good vintage.
I'm excited.
It's bad to cut fruit off this year. Yes.
For me, what?
It's terrible job to do. It's very hard to train people to cut fruit into the
Do you like cry? Do you like shed a single tear?
It's all right. I think it'd be wine quality after.
Well, there you go. That's what you have to think of, right?
We got a question here from, wants to know what happens to those grapes when they hit the ground, when they're thinned out. Are they just
shrivel
garbage?
up and die. It doesn't look pretty. A couple of days later, it looks like someone threw raisins everywhere.
Yeah.
It's true. I was walking down, I parked in the Chardonnay, and I noticed that you did that walk just behind us here at Tinhorn Creek, and I just looked at them and I had that single tear.
It's just rows and rows of dry. It's a very good cause.
Isn't there a verjus that you can do?
You could do verjus. That's probably about an hour onwards that start taking green grapes for doing that. But when you go to skins, it's much earlier. The berries will actually look like wheat, flecks of wheat up to baby pea size. So, and then they're not really developed, but we're taking them off them kind of foreseeing what's going to happen. If we left it now, it might be too late. You might already have problems. So
Yeah.
So yeah, if you left it look, you can do it as you.
What's a verjus?
It's a green harvest of grape.
Oh, okay.
And
Is it fermented?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
green harvest, well, they ferment it, but they add sugar to the juice.
Okay.
So it's green, so it's very acidic.
All right, so they're just picking it because it's green, not because of its first level and things like that. They're just adding sugars into it.
You should be asking those questions, very market questions.
Sorry, whoa, my bad. I just been told, guys. Wow. Okay, I'll see how this is. Sorry. Play this game. I get it. So sure, we had the earliest on record for Tinhorn Creek, for us anyways, harvest. So are we planning on starting harvest around that same time?
Not this year. I think it's pushed back a little bit. There was the fires last year.
That's true, yeah.
But, that changed the environment a little bit. So I don't know the full effect that had on the grapes, as in shading, etc., from the cloud or the smoke cover, the high smoke cover. But This year, I know there's a bit of extra crop on. We came 2014 where there was some winter damage in vines and had a lot less fruit on them. Okay, so whereas this year, basically the cropping's normal. So what happens to a vine is if it's cropping long, so say a 3 to 4 ton of acre crop,
Okay.
Pinot Gris would be picked a lot later, say if it was 2 ton or okay, because the vine's got more to do to ripen the grapes that are on the vine. We like that in a warmer season to have a bit of extra fruit on there because it actually slows the sugar accumulation. Well, the sweetness. Okay, as it gets higher and everything else comes in, sometimes in a hot year you'll get high alcohol wines because the sugar races away because it was too hot, especially in crops that are too light. So you can use yield to slow that sugar process down and let the flavours and everything else catch up in the grape. So you can use yield to, in a hot season,
Okay.
so we're very cognizant of that fact. So we do in Pinot Gris, in warm years, always leave more years, and in cold years, we can. So yeah, that's one of the decisions that we've got to make in May and June. If you're thinking it's going to be hot, or you're thinking it's going to be cold.
So when Mother Nature throws a curveball, it can be interesting.
Yeah.
Are we expecting the rain, or we are kind of
Not expecting
No.
No, that's so I came to Tim on the start of 09 and I haven't seen any conduit like that here before.
Yeah, no, it is strange. Like my husband and I moved here in 2011, and like even like it was a cold year, we thought it was hot, but we moved from Alberta, so everything's hot to us. You know, in all fairness. But I've never seen this much rain in July, especially July. June I could sometimes see it, but not.
Yeah, it hasn't been lots of rain for us. It's been consistently every second, third day we get a thunderstorm or something move through. You might get 2 mil or you might get 10 mil. So it's just the way it's been. So hot without east this year. Those guys, until I think last week, hadn't had rain since April.
That's crazy.
That's terrible over there because the guys over there don't have irrigation. So, because they're usually the heavier soils and they get a lot more rainfall, so they don't usually have to irrigate. Whereas here, we're lucky if it doesn't rain, we have got irrigation.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose if it does rain, we don't have to use our irrigation. So there's one up for BC again.
Yeah, it's just winning. We're just winners.
We have a funny question from Carol. She wants to know who has more say or power, the winemaker or the vineyard manager?
It's definitely not me. So there we go.
It's a collaborative thing. So Andrew Windsor here at Timon is great. He realises how important vineyards are to winemaking. So that's the first point. And so it's obviously. But basically how we go out into the vineyards now is we start tracking sugar accumulation. Okay, so we actually start testing the grapes. We'll start doing that probably next week. And then we start
measuring how fast they're ripening. So it's good for logistics for the winery to see what's ripening first or what's going to come in and what quantities are coming into the winery. So we do that. But then it can become more important for flavour expressions. Okay. So, go out and start tasting fruit when it gets to a certain sugar level, and then it's basically you're looking for features or characteristics of each grape to bring in. So you're looking at things like figures. Okay, so he comes out and does that, and I do that at the same time. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then you're talking through logistics. I organise everything outside of the winery, so bringing in trucks, bins, pickers, all of those kind of things to bring into him, and he's got to organise tank space, crushing equipment, as in the guys that sell the guys. So it's a massive collaborative effort by the winery when it comes to harvest. You just can't say was more important. When Sandra tells a story about Hansi Fisher, who was the original vineyard manager at Tinkle Creek. I think it was the horror year of '99. Everyone thought it was going to be a hot season, there was lots of grapes on, and it was a cold season.
Whoops.
And Sandra, I don't think she rang him because I don't think cell phones were very popular.
That's probably a good thing for Hans, I'm just saying,
Probably
you know.
confronted Hansi on the crush pad and said, how many more grapes are there? And he said, all of them. So, yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah, I'm sure he wasn't there at that moment.
No,
No, he was just like, whatever, it happens, it happens.
Zola has a question. She wants to know if you ever harvest at multiple times with a variety.
Yeah, we do, because we're very fortunate. We've got a number of blocks of different varieties, and some of them we've got different yield levels, so we might be harvesting one later or earlier, depending on their flavour profiles or sugar content or acid, etc. But what we can do, I know it's quite popular in making that, you might split a Sauvignon Blanc block in, so you'll go in early and you'll get those green, grassy profiles much similar to a Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc.
Okay.
Whereas if you go a bit later, you're more getting that like last or maybe forward, things like that. So you can change wine profiles by picking at different times, just on purpose, to give different layers into food. And sometimes it's just the logistics of paying and then come back and pick 2 days later, or you might be able to tell the difference between the two lots of fruit. One of the little things we do, the trick here is Sauvignon Blanc, which I should say.
Hotel, right? Hotel.
So we actually alternate rows in Sauvignon Blanc, so we'll leaf one row and on the eastern side of the canopy,
Okay.
and then we will not leaf the next row, so alternate rows, and that gives us that depth in Sauvignon Blanc. You get 2 different flavour profiles, and that we still logistically want to pick it at the same time, but you're getting different flavour profiles. So you can pick at a different time, go early, or go later, or you can change the canopy to get different flavour profiles.
That's pretty cool. Like, to me, that seems really interesting that you can change it that drastically with that. Terry looks like she has a question.
Yeah, people are having a little trouble hearing you, Andrew. Something with our mic, so.
Really?
Yeah, so I need you to speak
I can
up.
understand me, but
They
not hearing me is.
But they, yeah, so we just
Well,
need
they
you
can
to
always hear me.
speak up a little bit. There we go.
Is that better?
Technical issues.
I'll see if we get some feedback if that's better.
Okay.
So punch me a couple of times.
I'll try to hold this back until after. We'll see how much cheekier you get.
Just remember to speak out. There you go.
Yeah, so it's a great question. Well, we can manipulate flavours in windows. Obviously, and I guess the one so.
So I have a question going back to you and Andrew Square, going out to the vineyard and tasting the different profiles. So once it gets to the certain, like, first level, then you can see what you want for flavor profiles. Now, I know from drinking wine that one Pinot Gris can taste different to another. Is it like more of a subtle profile, or is it more pronounced to taste when you're tasting the grapes?
Yeah, so if you take Pinot Gris, for example, whereas people see Grigio or Gris,
Okay.
Grigio basically an Italian style way of making Pinot Gris, being Grigio, and the Pinot Gris, French style. So what's between that is you'll get a lot heavier, oilier, more alcoholic wine in the Grigio usually than you would be getting from a Gris. So in the vineyards, what would affect that or make those changes? You would leave your Gris a lot longer on the vine. Okay, so what that would do would be a lot higher sugar content, so you're going to get higher alcohol, And when Gree transforms at around the 22 Brix mark, which is the percentage of total solids in the grapes, which equivalates out into alcohol. When you leave it longer, it takes on different flavour profiles and fruit profiles. So when you pick Brie early, it's more in the apple pome fruit area. And then you leave Brie later, it starts moving into more either ripe stone fruit or even getting into tropical flavours. So depending on the style of wine it does, or after, then again, you're setting up your picking times on what you need to achieve.
Okay.
So that's just Brie. So
that's just Brie. And Brie.
Yeah.
Oh, that was funny.
So we have a question from Betty, and she wants to know, are there any varieties that are harder to pick than others?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of, I do some machine harvesting, and I also do a lot of hand picking. So some varieties, the pickers absolutely hate picking.
That was Paul's question too, about hand versus.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll get on to that in a sec, but the difference so the easy grape varieties to pick, the ones that are loose, large, this is for hand picking, easy to get at, make more money, right? Because they can fill their bins faster. Right?
So they get paid by the bin?
Crop load, they like picking that. They like picking larger bunches, and they like picking bunches that are easy to access, I suppose, in the vine. That doesn't bother machine. So Gewürztraminer is a perfect example of that. I have to pay large amounts of money for hand pickers for Gewürztraminer, whereas it's probably one of the easiest varieties to pick with a machine. So in terms of that, I would much prefer to use a machine on Gewürztraminer than hand pick it, because A, it will cost me a lot less money to machine harvest it. B, it comes off a lot cleaner, and there's a lot less damage done to the vines, because if you get a frustrated picker and they start ripping canes and ripping the leaf out of the vines to get at the fruit, you're doing a lot more damage than what a machine would do. So yeah, different varieties are easier to pick, but both by hand and then soft varieties are hard to pick by machine because the berries will split. Okay, so and then it leaves fruit on the vine. So what happens is you'll get a less efficient pick. So it gets more difficult as the grapes get softer in the skin. So I cannot pick like Semillon with a machine, because the actual grapes explode before the machine gets to them. So it's quite spectacular at night time, in the lights. And
they're like, I don't want to be
it's
wine.
Like this, but the bins aren't filling up. It's not good. But I only did that once.
And you never did it again, right?
And people like picking Semillon because it's large bunches and stuff. But there's differences in between the grapes of how easy they are to pick. And we actually set different dollar values for filling the bins on different varieties.
That would make sense. So
yeah, you have to, or people just walk off if they're not making any money. So so that in itself shows you that there's differences in picking.
So different varieties, you'll pay a different amount per bin?
Yep. Just
because they can. So on this side, because I know predominantly we hand harvest on the winery side, correct? Do we do any machine harvest on this side at all?
Yep, we machine harvest some Gewürztraminer on this side.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And is Diamondback completely machine harvested, or is some of it hand harvested?
Well, there is semi on here, so I won't do that.
No, okay.
But yeah, we got probably out of the 90 acres over close to 100 acres, we probably do 90 by machine. Okay, so we do the majority of it. It might be if we're doing some Pinot Noir and we're doing some whole bunch pressing or something like that, we'll do some hand picking of certain Pinot Noir blocks. Mm-hmm. We might do that Chardonnay just to give some depth and complexity in the wines by pressing the whole rashie out. But on top of that, to bring in 5, 6, 7 acres of Chardonnay within a couple of hours, the quality that you get out of that is way better by machine
And by hand
than when
harvesting.
you're waiting all day to get the fruit from hand harvesting. So the idea, Chardonnay is the best Chardonnay comes in as quick as you can into the winery, just to keep it fresh and everything else when they press it. But so we use the machines for quality reasons. One of the great examples of the machines is when we actually pick rosé. Okay,
Ooh, rosé. We really love our rosé.
We'll go through Cab Franc loves being machine harvested.
Okay.
It's got beautiful hard berries and it comes off nice. It's Cab Sauv as well, and we call it 100 mile an hour berry because we can go really fast and pick the vines really easily with the machines. But
Is that your last grape off the vine?
not necessarily. Usually Syrah and stuff like that in this valley are getting out there. Cab Franc, yeah, so we pick the Cab Franc for the rosé. We can whip through a 3 acre block in 3 or 4 hours and have that rosé in the bins. And what happens is that those bins, when we sit them aside, it's usually quite cool at that time of year. So the bins themselves are probably only 5 or 6 degrees Celsius if we pick it really early in the morning. So we'll actually wait till mid-morning to get a bit of sun, get the temperature up on the Cab Franc, pick it by machine, bring it in, and then we'll actually leave it overnight because it's in the bins already being machine picked. It's been separated basically from the rashy, so it's mostly all berries, and then some of those berries are split. And so just the natural process of those grapes sitting on grapes press onto each other and squeeze some juice out. And then it stays overnight in the barrel cellar, and our rosé is that beautiful that Rhone salmony kind of colour.
We love it.
And that colour extraction just comes from that process of those grapes sitting there overnight in their own skins. So that's how we make that. So
I'm getting like a faraway look in my eye.
really successful by the way the machine picks it, as opposed to being hand-picked. We'd have to put it into the press, right? And
Then you get the darker.
yeah, and then you get darker rosés and stuff. But that's a great way of doing that.
Time for our first poll.
Cool.
We have a poll. Okay. When we decide to harvest depends on 1, the color of leaves, 2, the color of grapes, 3, the amount of acid, or the flavor. So we will publish the poll
Okay.
and people can let us
Perfect.
know. Maybe it'll change our minds, how we do things.
Maybe.
It's a good time to come out to the vineyards at this time of year.
It is. It's exciting time to come out to the vineyards actually this time of year.
They've got a few grapes that are just starting to flavour up, as in they're edible. They haven't got that green acid flavour anymore. They're starting to get a little bit of sugar accumulation. So you can come here and walk through the vineyards. And
What a great segue, Andrew Moon. We happen to be doing a super fantastic event this Saturday coming up where you're going to be taking out a
I
group
didn't
of
know I was doing that.
Yeah, you were. Surprise. Did I not put that in your
Hold on
calendar?
until we publish.
I'm too busy to read calendars.
Hold Okay, we're gonna end the poll.
All right.
Interestingly enough, 0 said the color of the leaves,
Really?
25% said color of grapes,
Okay.
50% amount of acid, and 25% flavor.
Okay.
So what's your biggest criteria for when you harvest?
Acid's important, so I agree with those people. It is important. We have to get acid levels to a certain point where it doesn't rip your head off in the wine.
That would be nice.
But acid's important that you have enough or don't have too little. So we do watch acids. Generally around the world, acids run between 5 and 9 in most viticultural areas if you're picking at a certain brix level. So in hot climates, they'll drop below 5, and in cold climates, they'll stay above 9. So that's the general thing.
So you kind of want to in between those?
You're trying to, and acid is determined by a number of things. Overnight temperatures is a huge one.
Okay.
Okay, so vines will respire at night time in hot overnight temperatures, so they'll burn acid just through the respiration process, and or they lose acid from the heat, right? So in cold climate, you don't lose as much acid in grapes, and in hot climate, you lose acid. But it just depends where you are in the world. So that's important, but more so here at Tinhorn. So I'll say that because a lot of guys will pick on figures only. So they'll pick on bricks, which is the sugar accumulation, and they'll pick on pH, right? And they'll pick on the acid. So it depends where you are, but at Tinhorn here, we watch the figures, we track the figures, but it's more important to us to go out as a team and then taste the fruit. It took me 2 or 3 years to calibrate to Sandra. Okay. So that's the other thing. You've both got to get on track. You both get the same flavour profile. So we don't both have to be in the same place at the same time. After a little while, I can go in and say, this block's ready, and she'll go, yeah. And then come out and taste the fruit and go, yeah. All right. So you don't have to be there every day tasting different fruit. As long as you've got your calibration in your own palate to the other person, you start to understand what we require.
Did that shift with Andrew Windsor?
A little bit, but it took a little less time, I think, with Andrew. His palate was very much similar to Sandra's, like say when they came in. So it didn't take me long to adjust the minor nuances, I suppose, of his palate. Right. So, and it's an interesting thing doing that. We've taken devices out there like refractometers, digital refractometers.
So you've like geeked out totally.
And you can measure grape sugars and stuff in the field, but the thing is you're tasting fruit with that, and after a while you throw the digital thing out.
You're just like, whatever.
Yeah, and you know when it's ready. And we look for physical characteristics in the grape. So it's the ripeness, it's the phenological ripeness as well. So it's when seeds are ripe, it's when the skins are looking good, it's when the vines look good. There's a whole lot of different things that we're looking at.
I'm gonna get on that team.
That's pretty cool.
You know.
I've got a funny question saying, is there ever a time when you said, we harvested this too early or late?
Oh, yeah.
Can a picking wine be ruined by the wrong harvest date, or can the winemaker save it?
Okay, so there's 3 or 4 questions there. Okay. Yes, picked it at the wrong time.
You actually can say
Oh,
that?
shit. Anyway, yes. Farming, right? You got to do some things sometimes. So an example of that would be if you thought rain was coming, right? And it was going to destroy the grapes or whatever, and you'd gone out and picked it, then it didn't rain, it cleared up and it was sunny. And you go, oh crap, that was a waste of a year. But whatever. Or there could be technical issues that you might be picking late because you couldn't get enough people to pick or things like that. So that happens, you know, that's normal farming. Winemakers wreck stuff all the time.
Oh, snap. Poor Andrew Windsor, he's not even here to defend
It's got nothing to do with the picking, all right? Not true. You can, you can pick really badly, and like I said, you can go and smash vines to pieces with a machine with soft variety. If you don't take care, you can set those machines to be pick it perfect. But if you're not doing your job properly, you can really destroy that. Or you can let 10 pickers go amok in the vineyard that are getting paid by the bin, and they throw everything in the bin, including mice and tyres and rubber, whatever they can throw in the bin to get the weight of the bin up or to fill the bin up. So there's both ways that could happen, right? It's quality assurance in the vineyards at the picking time that ensures that the best fruit goes to the winery. So, winemakers can then screw it up on the other end. So
can they save it?
They say they can.
I think you can just do like a mic drop right now. You're just like,
I hope Windsor's watching you.
You just like threw down the gauntlet. You totally did. That's awesome.
I've got a question from Zola. Is the Golden Mile Chardonnay hand harvested? And what flavor profile are you looking with that one?
Yes. So yes, it is hand harvested. The only reason it is hand harvested though is that we can't get a machine into that block. It's too steep on the ends and we can't turn the actual machine around on the end. So it's not by choice that we hand pick it. We just hand pick it because it's too hard to get the machines in. So that's the first part. Second part, we try to get it's just below the Oldfields house on this property. So as you enter into Tinhorn on the crossroad, it's only a 2-acre block. So what we try to do there is get the vines up and going early, which we did this year, helped by Mother Nature. Okay, after flowering it sets. So what we're after is small berries, open bunches, things like that in that Chardonnay to get the best quality cream. Then we go in there and we make sure that the yields are right for like the upper tier Chardonnay. Okay, so we do that, and then we're looking for flavour profiles when we get in there. Chardonnay is a funny thing. You'll get, for the longest time, you'll get these apple profiles in Chardonnay, right until suddenly it just starts turning. The berries even change the way they look. So you look at Chardonnay, it's more like a gris or something like that. When you're looking at it, it's like pretty green. The berries are slightly opaque. But as soon as Chardonnay is ready to pick, it goes really clear and golden colour. The rashes, like where the grapes hang on, it goes really woody, that kind of deal. And you just kind of know physically looking at the vines that they're going to be close. And we're always looking for really ripe seed development in the Chard, right rashy. We try to have the shoots lignified, all those kind of things. And what that deal with then is you start getting into those tropical fruit notes, really ripe peaches, those kind of, and you'll taste that out in the field. Okay, so it'll actually start in front of your eyes. You can go from apple to those riper flavours. And I know Sandra used to run Melody, her daughter, through the vineyard, and it was like she calibrated her palate, and she had a pad of paper, and it'd be taste this, and be out of 10, and she'd go, how many berries taste good? And if Melody got up into the 9s,
it was time.
It was time.
That's pretty cool.
Because she got rid of the apple flavour, she went into the right flavour. So it was a really clever way of just randomly tasting berries. But
yeah,
I don't do that. But it's
sure.
Yeah.
We have a slide of Gewürztraminer in Veraison. Someone wants to know about the explanation of Veraison.
The Veraison is a French term. It basically means berry softening, okay, or colour change. It's in that area. So whites, it's hard to tell sometimes in Veraison because all the grapes start out green, and then in Veraison, in whites, they kind of stay green. They go opaque, so you can nearly go translucent.
Okay.
That's all berry softening. So berry softening is a really easy way of telling in whites. Reds, obviously, they change colour from green to red, so that's quite easy to see Veraison. And viticulturally wise, we look at Veraison, so between 50 and 80%, some people call 50%, some people are 80% would say it's in full Veraison, okay? And then that means that every single berry's changed in the bunches, okay, when they say full Veraison. Okay, so it's a period of, say, it could be a period of 3 or 4 days to a period of 2 or 3 weeks, depending on the temperatures and stuff like that. But that's what Veraison is. It's the colour change or the berry softening in grapes.
And where would you be with your red varieties in Veraison right now?
Changes across the board. This is really strange. Some of the varieties that are further along are things like Syrah and Cab Sauv. Okay, so
which would be odd for this time of year.
No, that's quite normal.
Okay.
They're early bud burst as well. So, but their growing season's longer. They actually veraise earlier than, say, Merlot. What happens is they hang longer, then it takes them a lot longer time to get to harvest level to the point. Whereas Merlot and then Cab Franc, which is probably the last veraise, would overtake those varieties in the ripening process. So, the Cab Sauves and Cab Cab Franc's only like 5%, 10% for Asian, not very much. Cab Sauves are up into the 80s and 90%, and then Syrah's probably in the 80 and 90%. Merlot is about 50, 60. So that's where we're sitting in our reds at the moment. Chardonnay's fully raised. Pinot Gris at 80, 90%. Gewürztraminer is probably at 80, 90%. Things like Petit Verdot haven't started yet.
So what do you think we're going to be picking first this year? Like if you had to take an educated guess, what do you think we're harvesting first?
Yeah, so I did walk around and not taste berries, but I might have had me refract. That's, yeah, so I don't want to get surprised.
Yeah.
By what happened to me 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But
you're older and wiser.
Older and wiser now,
yeah,
so
obviously.
I'll probably go a bit prematurely through the vineyards, but it's all good. Anyway, I go out and just roughly look for average berries in a block at this time of year, and then throw them over a hand refract and then taste the berries and see where they're at. Last week I'm in all in mid bricks levels, they call them. So I'm around between anywhere from 12 to 17 bricks, depending on the varietals. So that kind of puts me on the head where things are going to be heading to. I'm not going to be surprised as well. So, but at that stage, there's like actually we got a younger block of Chardonnay that was fairly up there. Not to say that would come off earlier, but things like Sauvignon Blanc and Muscat are up there, and Pinot Gris up there. So Pinot Gris, I'm guessing Pinot Gris would be laying the best odds down.
You're going to lay the best odds on
the
Pinot
worst
Gris.
odds down.
All right. Well, by the time the next webinar rolls around, we'll know for sure, and we can let our viewers know if you were right.
If we pick, I would just say we're just going to go pick the Gris.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do. I've just made an executive decision.
I was right.
I was right. It doesn't matter.
We have another quick poll.
Okay.
So if people have been listening to you, so our biggest challenge at harvest, is it rain? Is it labor, getting the right labor? Is it dirty feed? I guess that's the foot stomping. Or is it fatigue, long season? And you go double shifts, don't you, when you're doing harvest?
Vineyard doesn't have shifts.
You're like, shifts? What is this thing you speak of?
They're just words, right?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. We'll see what our listeners, our viewers feel. Okay. Give it a few more. So far, rain is at 67%, labor 0, dirty feed is at 0, and fatigue at 33%.
Listen, you come out and pick my grapes.
I know,
That's
right?
awesome.
You just have like a whole entire volunteer crew.
Excellent.
Labor just jumped up to 25%.
Yeah. They won't stick tires in them or anything.
But it might be raining.
But
Okay, we're going to answer the poll.
not the review.
And the correct is
Multiple.
all of the above.
So probably the dirty feet thing's the most important. It's not. I'd drop that. No one dirty feet today.
No, 0%. Yeah, 50 on rain, 25 labor, 25 fatigue.
Yeah, so rain causes issues just logistically wise, and or if you had tight bunch varieties and it starts raining on them, you might have to pick them up, get rot. So rain does cause issues at harvest. Okay, labour definitely causes issues. If you can't get anyone to pick your grapes, you're going to go back to that previous question and say that I didn't get my crop in on time. Okay, so that can cause issues. And then what's the other one is,
Too bad.
you just
too bad, so sad.
That happens. You got to be really careful with your crew because seriously, some of the vineyard guys might run 12, 14, 15 hour days. If you ever driven a car 15 hours in a row, you kind of get the idea of what driving a tractor is for 15 hours at a time. We try not to do that.
No, because when you're operating machinery like that, fatigue equals
That's right.
accidents.
So you got to really watch. So you try and swap staff out, like jump on tractors, things like that. So you got to watch all those things at harvest time. But harvesting, really, in the terms of everything that we do in vineyards, it's one of our easiest times of the year because it's kind of set. Right? It's not.
Like,
Once we decide to go, it's all logistics. It's not like we're going to get, if it rains, we postpone harvest like a day.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. But going through the normal season, like we just said, you have the 2 hottest months ever, and then you have one of the coldest months ever. They're things that make it. So, yeah.
Speaking of difficult, Carol would like to know, she knows that, being in the Okanagan is, of course, the #1 place to be, but is there any areas in the world that are the best areas to be?
Is she baiting me? Or?
She is. We'll have to talk to her after. Or some that are most frustrating, like, if you're growing grapes in France versus Australia versus South Africa or New Zealand or...
Every region in the world would have its difficulties. The trouble is there's microclimates everywhere as well. So you can't just say the Okanagan's easy to pick in. If you go up into Salmon Arm, it's going to be much more difficult up there to pick grapes at that time of year because of the cold, the rains that break through. So we're very fortunate here that those rains that do come through in October into Vancouver, they get hit by the Cascade Mountain. It does hold it off a little bit for us. So if you get into certain places in Okanagan where it does bust through the mountain, so you get these little microclimates everywhere, and that'll happen everywhere around the world. They have great regions around the world that are purely tourism driven. Okay, and viticulturists wouldn't plant a grape there if you paid them to, but they make more money than us, right? Because they're close to large population centres.
Okay.
But those places, I'll dob the Hunter in Australia, but the Hunter Valley is right next to Sydney, big population. They have huge difficulties at harvest time just because they have a summer dominant rainfall there. And it's very hard. They can't even get machinery in to pick their fruit and things like that. So they put themselves in A, they make a lot of money because of the tourism industry there and everything, but sometimes it's not the best place to grow grapes because the rain's coming all the time at the time when you're harvesting. So there's different places in the world that, depends where you are. The Burgundy's had a lot of trouble in the last couple of years where they haven't even got crops off in certain areas just because of the weather.
Wow.
So, and that's one of the old grape growing areas in the world. The climate's changing. I don't know to the extent, but there's different reasons that different regions have difficulties every year. And it's good for everyone because everyone shares the pain.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm showing a picture of the rocks that you have piled up from your reed plant.
Oh yeah,
You've got
so
rocks to deal with, right?
not only do we do normal vineyard stuff, we also
You're excavators as well.
we're also excavators as well. That's a picture. I know I haven't. I don't need to see the picture.
Nightmares?
Yeah.
A little bit.
So yeah, that's on the Golden Mile, and that's one of our new blocks of Roussanne.
That's exciting.
Okay, and that's where we just rock picked it. And so if you've ever been up to Tinghorn, we've got a large lineal meatage of rock walls here. They all came out of the vineyard, so it's very rocky here. But that's the resultant out of a rock pick out of 1 acre. So
That's so nuts. But it's like pretty much the opposite on the Diamondback side, correct?
You wouldn't find a rock.
No.
Occasionally, but
This is like small.
I think someone threw one there in 1963 or something. But
And it's just
it's
stayed
basically
there.
sand.
Yeah, basically sand.
These are big grains of sand over here.
Yeah, just giant grains of
On
sand.
that bare field, I've got a picture up now of the Roussanne. And
Yeah, so-
it's growing.
Quite happy with the establishment on those blocks. We got it into the ground at the right time. We had great planting crew in there. And those vines are done really well. We basically, for first year stuff, we usually just let it grow up in what they call sprawl. what that does is just accumulates carbohydrates or antifreeze for the following season, and then we cut them back down to the ground exactly where they were the year before. Again, the accountants don't like that very much, but Vineyard guys love it. But it's yeah. Anyway, so we do that, but the block, I think there was a picture of the block before that, and it's grown really nicely. And the way that what we do that for is for evenness or uniformity in the vineyard. So from now on, those blocks are pretty uniform, so the management of those blocks is the same. The fruit quality is going to be the same through the blocks too. So it eventually shows up in the wine. So
when will you see some fruit from that?
The top block, I don't know what the pictures were, but the vineyard, the vines that were planted last year that have grown quite well, they'll have a small crop on this year, as in 2017 vintage. So they have 2 or 3 bunches of vines, so probably quarter to a half ton to the acre block. The vines next to them, they won't have fruit on them until 2018. Okay, so
3 years from planting?
3 to 4 years from planting. 4 years is usually commercial or getting up into small commercial cropping levels. So 2.5 tons an acre. But yeah, so it takes a little while, and that's what I said. They don't like that when you cut them off to the ground for another year.
No, exactly not.
Here's an interesting question, especially because you come from Australia with a longer history of wine growing, but how old is an old vine's vineyard?
Oh, that's
a good one.
Is this Carol again?
Yeah.
She's throwing me under the bus.
You need to give her fake names.
That's not Carol, it's Alice.
There are seminars on that topic. From a marketing point of view, it's probably 5 years old.
Let's take New World and Old World.
Old World vines, the Douro 600-year-old vineyards. Okay, so there's your old vines.
Yeah.
In the US, probably in Sonoma, California, old vines are anywhere between probably 120, 160-year-old, somewhere in that pit. And this is commercial vineyards, straight about, they're in that 120 to 160 mark down there. You get into some, old world stuff can get 300-400 years old. So old vines in the Okanagan are around 50, 60, 40, somewhere in that range. Yeah. So depends where you are in the world and what people like to market as old vines. And it's comparative to what else is in the area. So, yeah.
You have an event coming up.
I do have an event coming up. It's I decided to work with this one again. Dream team, what? So we have a great little event coming up on Saturday, August 13th, called From Vine to Wine. It's $49 per person, and essentially Mr. Moon, this will be the only time that I'm going to ever call you Mr. Moon. Don't get used to it. He'll be taking you out on a vineyard hike in behind Tin Horn Creek, talking to you more about our vineyard practices, sustainability, and of course the Golden Mile Bench, because we're super proud to be a part of that. And then afterwards going down to the demo vineyard and doing a little reception with some fantastic Tin Horn Creek wine, because we like to drink, and some appies from Miradoro.
Nice.
Yeah, I know, right? And you're totally invited to that part.
Can we run? We'll run through the vineyard.
We'll run through the vineyard. He's like, I'm so thirsty. Ooh. And then our next webinar is coming up September 13th as well. We'll be back in Sandra and Ken's kitchen for an online kitchen chat with Sandra Oldfield, our CEO and president, and Kate Collins, our marketing coordinator, talking about social media and wine.
You think I'm hard to understand?
I know, right? It'll be great. I can understand her a little bit better. But just saying. So yeah, so that will be a lot of fun. The link to join the webinar is now on tinhorn.com, and you can also purchase your tickets from Vine to Wine. Very limited amount of tickets, so get them if you're going to be visiting us. So yeah,
Can you do one mention on a limited availability of Oldfield Series Chardonnay?
yes, we have released the Oldfield Series Chardonnay to everyone now. So there's very limited availability. Terry and I will be sending out, if you're a Crush Club member, we'll be sending out the emails tomorrow morning, and it will be available for you guys as your one last stretch for this year. So yeah, so it'll be limited quantities available for you for that. And don't miss out because it's fantastic.
And I can show the guys where that was grown too. So,
Yeah, I think you should. I think that'll be a lot of fun. I'm actually going to go on the hike with you guys, so take pictures. Are you ready for your close-up, Mr. DeMille?
So it sounds awesome. Bye-bye.
Bye.